Hi, I'm Andy Zopp, President and CEO of the Chicago Urban League, and welcome to A to Z with Andy Zopp. In today's post, I'm going to share with you a video of some remarks I gave at our recent Golden Fellowship Dinner, which is our large fundraiser. This year was our 50th, and my remarks focused on the importance of history to forward progress. I talk about that and why in these remarks that we're going to share with you in a minute. And that's really important for the Urban League because we have a rich legacy and history. As I mentioned, this dinner, our Golden Fellowship dinner that we just had, was our 50th dinner. And on December 12th, Chicago Urban League celebrated its 95th birthday. For 95, or anniversary, for 95 years, we have been working to build stronger communities and help African Americans find access to the things that are critical to contributing to your community and to building a life. Access to quality education, access to decent housing, access to work so that you can build wealth and support your family and contribute to your community. Those are the things we've been doing in Chicago for 95 years, and the National Urban League's been doing in this country for over 100 years. And we believe that I believe that history and legacy is part of our strength. And so I talk about that in the remarks you're going to see. We're really proud of our history and proud to recognize it, and really it lays the foundation for us for the work to go forward, because while we've been doing this work for 95 years, there's still a lot more work to be done, and we're going to continue to do that, to continue to work with young people in schools to ensure that they can graduate college and career ready, to work with people to get them back in the housing market and to get them trained for the new jobs that are coming today, the high-tech jobs in technology and in green workforce and in healthcare. So we're working to do that as well, and we're working to help small businesses grow their business, and we're going to continue to do that work, but we're going to do that based on the foundation created by our 95-year history. So I hope you enjoy the remarks, you find them inspiring and enlightening, and that they move you and touch you. Thanks for joining me, and here they come.
Good evening, everyone. As I was standing there watching that video, I made a mental note, trying to pull myself together. I made a mental note to self: put speech before emotional moving video next year. You all just had an opportunity to share in part with my experience that I have had since I had the privilege of taking on the leadership of this amazing organization last year. Everywhere I go, I run into people like those you saw in the video who tell me how the Chicago Urban League has had a positive impact on their lives. The video shows you a small example of what I have seen and heard, and know that the Chicago Urban League is literally every day empowering communities and changing lives. Now, yeah. Before I go on, I want to thank our wonderful co-chairs, Melody Hobson, James O'Connor, Rick Waddell, and Ann Pramaggiore. Thank you all for accepting the challenge to lead the fundraising efforts of this milestone gala, and for all your tireless efforts to make this event a success. To our host committee, led by Ralph Hughes and Joe Moore, thank you for your hard work and commitment to the League. To Tony Anderson and the best board of directors that anyone could ever, any president or leader of an organization could ever hope for, thank you for your leadership and guidance. And to my great staff, thank you for sticking by me in my first year at the Urban League. I know it hasn't exactly been easy. And to our sponsors, friends, family, special guests, thank you all for being here. Clearly, you are all in the room are empowering the future. I just have to take a brief moment to recognize my family, my mother-in-law, my sister and brother-in-law who came from Indiana, my three children, Alyssa, Kelsey, and Will. They had so much fun last year. This year they brought their posse with them. Now they have their own table. And of course, my best friend, my rock, my husband, Bill. who this year, on one really, really bad day that I was having, sent me some flowers with the note that said, "I will always be by your side." Thank you, honey. I'm really blessed to have you by my side. I'm always by yours. Our theme tonight is honoring our past, empowering our future. I am a lover of history, and I have always seen the Chicago Urban League's long history and legacy as its strength. But I've come to realize that not everybody sees it that way. Some people, particularly younger people, think our longevity simply means we're old. And not old in a wise, seasoned, experienced kind of way, old in a slow, stodgy, boring, irrelevant kind of way. And that issue is a real issue of concern because if young adults do not see the Chicago Urban League as engaging, innovative, and relevant to them in their lives, we will not be here much longer, much less for another 95 years. This is one of the reasons we have spent so much time this year developing a social media presence, because as our friends at Nielsen have told us, that is where young Black Americans are. But in addition to reaching out to young adults, it is also critical to help people see, as our theme suggests, that understanding and appreciating our history is important. We cannot go forward if we do not know where we have been. Now, those of you who were here last year know I like visual aids. Once a trial lawyer, always a trial lawyer. And I have one tonight. I hope. I found this picture at the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis, Tennessee. For those of you who don't know about the museum, it is attached to the Lorraine Motel where Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. If you ever have an opportunity to go, you absolutely should. It's an amazing place. This powerful picture in many ways speaks for itself, but I want to draw your attention to the date at the top, 1962, 1 year after this dinner was founded. This dinner was started 50 years ago in 1961, before the Civil Rights Act, before the Voting Rights Act, before the March on Washington. Lunch counters, hotels, and bathrooms were still segregated. School districts across the country were refusing to follow the mandate of Brown versus Board of Education, and Black people were still being lynched in the South for looking at a white person the wrong way. But despite this hostile environment where so many walls still stood between blacks and whites, here in Chicago, a courageous, dedicated, and diverse group of individuals led by then Chicago Urban League Executive Director Bill Berry and then board member who is here this evening and who you saw get this party started, said, "We will not let hatred and division stop us." They said the work of the Chicago Urban League in helping African Americans find jobs, find housing, stay in school was crucial work. They understood that a strong Black community in Chicago meant a stronger, better Chicago. Their strength, their courage, their commitment to overcome racism, to make the city better for all of its residents, that is the history that we honor here tonight. But there is another reason why it is so important to appreciate and value our history, because as George Santayana said, those who can't remember the past are destined to repeat it. If we don't understand or know where we come from, we will be moving backwards before we know it. We know African Americans have made significant progress since 1961. We have overcome so much on our way to becoming a better society. We have elected Barack Obama as our president. Yet despite all this progress, African Americans still lag on almost every critical social, economic, and educational statistic. And there are signs in some areas that our forward progress is stalled, and maybe even moving backwards. You may have heard about a new crime going around in America and increasing in the past year. It's the crime of educational theft. This crime has occurred in places where children who were consigned to substandard and underperforming schools. And these are the kinds of schools where when the day you start the school, the child starts the school, if they go every day, if they do all their work, they do their homework, they pass all their grades and tests, and they graduate, they still will not be ready and prepared for high school or college, those kind of schools. And the parents of some of these children said, "No, I don't want my child in that school. I want my child to have a chance." And so they enrolled their children in school districts that had better schools, but where they did not reside. And when those school districts found out, those parents were charged with crimes. In one well-publicized case in Ohio, the mother was convicted on felony charges and actually served time in jail. In another, a homeless woman was arrested and charged with a crime for enrolling her son in a district that was not near the homeless shelter in which she lived. So think about this. Think about what is happening in these cases. We limit the educational opportunities for poor black children. We confine them to largely segregated and inferior schools. And then when their parents push back and try to get what we all want for our kids, a quality education, we jail them. It's not exactly like legally segregated schools of our past or the state troopers barring the doors of schools to avoid integration, but it is closer than we'd like to admit. And it's important because we know, as our parents did and their parents did, education is the key to opportunity. Without it, we have little chance. Now let's look briefly at one other area that has been central for African American progress: voting. There are an increasing number of laws being passed that limit how and when people can be registered to vote, the kinds of identification that will be accepted for people to vote, and the times and places when people can vote. Now, at first blush, maybe these laws seem kind of reasonable. How big a deal is it to have an ID when you vote? But understand that they are, in essence, increasing the restrictions, placing limits on who, how, when, and where we can vote. And I think of my history, of my grandfather, whose own father was born a slave. My grandfather wanted to do one thing in his life. He wanted to vote, but he never could because he lived in Mississippi. And when he went to register to vote, he was told that in order to register and vote in Mississippi, he had to be able to recite the Bill of Rights, the United States Constitution, from memory. So I bet most of you don't even know how many amendments there are in the Bill of Rights, much less the whole thing from memory. But the point is, he was denied. And when you take a closer look from a perspective informed by history, you might question laws that restrict our right to vote, rather than enhance, encourage, and create opportunities for citizens to exercise that right. You might just see these laws as a step backwards. The promises of the civil rights movement have not been yet truly realized, and whether you believe that progress for African Americans has slowed or that in some places we may even be slipping backwards, it is clear that the Chicago Urban League's work to ensure that African Americans can fully access the opportunities that our country and city have to offer and can fully contribute to growing and building stronger communities is as important now as it was at our founding 95 years ago or when this dinner was started 50 years ago. Our history, our longevity is not a weakness or a liability, it's a strength. It is the foundation on which we will ground our efforts as we refuse to go backward. And we most decidedly and assuredly will step forward. We will step forward into an empowered future where parents are honored, not jailed, for fighting for their children's right to a quality education. And where the only pipeline we talk about is a pipeline to graduation and a career, not to a prison cell. We will step forward into an empowered future where African American businesses can participate in the work and opportunities that are being created by government and private investments in their city and their neighborhoods. We will step forward into an empowered future where individuals are not living in fear of losing their homes to foreclosure, where their neighborhood is a thriving, safe neighborhood, not block after block of boarded up, crumbling, abandoned buildings. And we will step forward into an empowered future where the graduation of a young black man from high school or college is not exceptional, but expected. Empowering the future happens in the present. The present lies with us. With your support, the Chicago Urban League will continue to work for that empowered future, to push forward, to ensure that we do for our children what our parents did for us, leave a world better than the one we entered. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your evening.